Okay. Thank you.
Do you know anything about Ashti? If she was able to connect?
I will ask.
Thank you so much. I think this page works nicer with the chat on the right side and the cameras. I think it might be better.
We can start in 5 minutes.
Yeah. So guys, get the drink, get the coffee. How even how we're saying this, the kind of about this 5 minutes, drink and something, yeah.
Yeah, drink and talk.
Yeah, the drink and talk. That might be a topic for of a theme of our discussion that we are thinking later.
Drink and talk. Just a casual talk you have having a drink and enjoy.
This event sounds too official, yeah.
Without being, say, too concerned about everything to subject.
But you definitely haven't met the guys, yeah, before? Never.
No, actually, I haven't. So it's the first time meeting all of you.
Okay. No, I think it's also a good way to connect with the past winners.
Yeah, no, it's great. You did it especially before the new award launching now. So it's great motivation maybe for more people to join. I guess, yeah.
I hope so. That's the goal as well, our goal. So we'll see. So now maybe in this 5 minutes before we start, Joachim Aitor, would you like to say the story how you met with Ashti, or maybe you would like to wait for her with that story?
Yes, I would love because she just told me 1 sec she's entering. I told her about the changing of the channel, so it's maybe 1 minute.
Okay. Because you definitely haven't collaborated with any winners or participants, yeah?
No, I haven't. I was. It was a individual project, so yeah. So it's interesting to hear, on a different perspective also. A practice, not the student entry. So it's great.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you guys will be able to borrow something from each other. Tips and tricks, skills.
Hello, Ashti.
Yeah.
Hey guys, sorry, I was having a tough time joining.
Hi, Ashti.
Hi.
Don't worry, it's great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Slowly starting, getting prepared, I think, and waiting for your story with AVAP architecture, how you go connected. That's the question in the first 5 minutes.
It's a fun story.
That's even better. I think that's great.
So, guys, how did you meet?
Oh, okay.
Well, Martin and I were about to participate in a competition, a non-architecture competition, or maybe we already done one competition. I think with the buying one.
The first one, I don't remember.
But
It
I
was
think
Yeah, it was buying. It was
the
one of
buying.
the
sure.
drawings. Yeah.
Playing.
There we received, I think, a notable mention, and watching all the finalists and honorable mentions and the winners, we saw one drawing that blows our minds, and we were like, "Wow, who's the person that has made this drawing?" And then we find out that it was Sasti, and we contacted her for collaborating for more non-architecture competitions, specifically for non-architecture competitions. And
Yeah, they just reached out to me on LinkedIn. It was super random. It was, I had a job I was working in the US at the time, and then I get this LinkedIn message, and I remember telling my partner at the time, now my husband, I was like, oh, these two Spanish guys reached out to me. This has to be like a scam or something. Like, what is this? Why would they reach out to me? And then we got in touch, and I think the first competition we did together, and we've done many at this point, was dying actually for non-architecture. So yeah, it's a special story.
So, was it the style that connected you, or just, I don't know, you felt the vibe that it's similar? Or what was it?
I'm not sure. I think we have very different styles, but they sort of come together in an interesting way. And I think all of us have interests in things outside of architecture, maybe, and there's something of that translates into the work, which, I mean, I don't want to speak for these guys, but maybe that's why they reached out.
yeah, actually, I think that the thing that we have in common in order to participate into the competition and do this kind of collaboration was because it was super fun for Joaquin and I. And I think all the collaboration that we did with Nasty were super exciting and super fun. Always trying experimental kind of drawings and experimental graphics and
Narrative also, storytelling.
storytelling. Exactly.
Okay. Guys, if we can start with, maybe this is a short introduction of what is going to happen probably today a little bit. However, just to introduce who we are and what we are basically. So, hello everyone. We want to welcome you in the first, basically, NonA talk, together with Irina.
Just one second, I wanted to ask you to stop it so I can set up a recording properly. Sorry.
Irina, yeah, do you hear us?
Yeah, do you hear me?
Yes, kind of. So we just want to put the recording on.
Yeah. I just want to put the recording. Would you like me to record the screen as well, or just to record
Yes,
what
please.
you have just as a, let's say, podcast? Because I have both options, but I need to set it up properly just before we start. Yeah.
Of course.
Okay. Sorry about that.
So one moment, please.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, it will start in 3 seconds. Yeah.
Okay. So I will repeat myself, guys. Hello, everyone. My name is Alexander Sventon, and together with Irina, we started a collaboration with Non-Architecture to bring you new events and new drawings to life, basically. However, based on the discussion and the interviews with the past winners, such as we got today, Ashti, Daphne, Aitor, and Joaquin, we hope to bring basically drawings to life, as I said. And our goal is not only to present their views and the design processes, but also the motivations behind the competition entries, and actually the goal that they achieved, which was the winning or getting the honorable mentions in most of the competitions. And from what I saw, from what we saw, you participated in many of those. So we thought that you might be the greatest ones to ask actually the opinion of why is it important to compete in the competitions, and why is it important. So hopefully we will get this answer at the end. That may be led by a few other questions, hopefully. So just a little bit of a background of ourselves. My name is Alexander Sventon, and together with Irina Temciuc, we met in Coventry University. We were leading dozens, tens of events for the last 4 years with different architects, and we hope to bring our experience to non-architecture and to listen to a little bit more voices, and not only the professional architects, but also the young winners, the young architects who create the innovative, let's say, ideas for the world of architecture. Irina, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, I'm happy you're all here, because another goal of ours was to bring you all together and make you interact and to meet each other. And I think that's amazing. Hopefully it will be a nice friendship, nice connection, and a very lovely interaction and so on. As Alex mentioned, we started creating events for the Coventry University Architecture Society. I'm still continuing doing that. And yeah, this is probably the nicest way we collaborated, and we obtained some really good results. And hopefully you enjoy the experience we did here for you. So thank you so much for accepting our invitation.
So,
Our debate as a challenge. Yeah.
so now, guys, would you like to introduce yourselves, who you are, and what do you do on an everyday basis? Maybe a few words. Ashti, would you like to start?
Sure. So my name is Ashti Miller. I'm an architect who basically, I live in India and I work in India, but I work for a company in the US. So I work kind of crazy hours. I also, on the side for fun, kind of run an illustration practice that's very sort of architecturally driven. It actually all started when I started participating in non-architecture competitions, because that was my first foray into, wild representation. And I think working with AFAB has been, one of those things that's really pushed me forward. And these guys have been such an amazing support system, and that for me, and they kind of pushed me when I was first starting illustration to really get out there. And I don't think any of this would have happened without them. So it's sort of amazing the kind of friendship that I think we formed, that, we're not in touch every day. We don't talk all the time, but it's always at the back of my mind, that the influence that they've had on how I work. So, yeah.
That's a good introduction. Daphne?
Yes, also thanks for the invitation, Reina and Alex. It's super exciting to be here. And yeah, I mean, I'm a Greek born. I'm an architect, a landscape architect. I just finished my degree. I went to Germany and I studied architecture there at the Technical University of Munich. And it was interesting because in my year abroad, I went to the University of Bath, and then I had the first sort of communication with the discipline of landscape architecture, and I fell in love with landscape. So then I came back to the Technical University of Munich. I finished my degree. I had the incredible opportunity to be at the chair of Francis Queret, and he's also very much driven by landscape and the dynamism of that. So then I chose to switch disciplines and do my master's in landscape architecture. So I went to the UK and I joined the Bartlett. So now I'm also working in this sort of interdisciplinary ground between landscape and architecture, and potentially would like to join these together in the future in my own practice. But I just graduated a month ago, so there is a bit more time for that. And this is the second competition I joined from non-architecture. I first joined the Waterless World, which was in 2021, and I got an honorable mention there, and I was really motivated then to show the development of my design in the next competition. And yeah, so this was really the motivation that got me to join the second competition.
Thank you. And Aitor, Joaquin, would you like to sit together or whatever you want?
Joaquin will introduce us.
Well, I'm Joaquin. With Aitor, we are founder of AFAB, which is a little firm of architecture studio here in Spain, because now Aitor is living in Geneva, as he said before, and I'm living in Murcia. We met each other at the University of Granada, the south of Spain. And from there up to now, we are working together because we have a similar thought about architecture. We started in 2017, more or less, at the end. And the first, because we don't have enough amount of work, we dedicate most of the time in competition. One of them is non-architecture. Today we are still doing some competition, but less than before. Well, that's it. Did you want to add something more, Aitor?
I will add that right now that we are alternating practice with less competition, but we are still doing some competition, and we are also in the field of research. We are doing our respective PhDs. So this later we'll talk about it, because this is very useful to explore some ideas that you are working on, practice and research, also to kind of trying them into competition. That's why I mentioned it.
Thank you guys for the introduction. And you just basically touched our topic, and thank you for that, which is kind of why you participate in the competitions. However, like, why did you choose? Because competition is one way to go, but then you can have internships, and I think that's one of my first questions. Like, all of you were working at the same time as you were participating in the competition, so that was something outside, or maybe it was just one way to go. Do you get my question? I don't know if there is anyone to happy to answer.
I can start with that. So I went to school in the US, architecture school, and it tends to be very competitive out there. I mean, as a school environment, and a lot of my classmates were participating in all of these competitions, but they were usually these kind of real world competitions, build a school here or like a tower here, and I never had much of an interest in that. I always say, like, I mean, I am an architect. I went through all the effort to get licensed in the US, but I'm not interested in architecture at all, in a way. I've always liked the representation part the most. So for me, when I got out of school and took a job in architecture, I needed like an outlet to kind of express myself and do a lot of, fun representation, which you can do in college, in your classes, but obviously in the real world, you can't. So that's how I started competing. And I found obviously non-architecture is the best kind of forum to create something crazy and speculative, where you can really focus on representation and less on the real world nature of it. So for me, I found exactly what I wanted, which is architecture, but not architecture. I think that for me was the draw, and that just kind of led to other competitions. I think when you do one, the rest become less scary. You kind of just have to rip off the band-aid and just do your first one, and it's okay to lose. And I think it's sort of important to retain that attitude.
Then the process just becomes repetitive in the competitions, or it's always different. Okay,
it's always new. I think each one you do is completely different, but I think you start to have more fun. I think the more you do them, you start to enjoy the process more and kind of understand that they can be stressful, but you're not supposed to be stressed out about it. It's supposed to be like an outlet for expression. So I think I started seeing it more like that the more I did. I think I've done maybe not too many. I mean, nothing compared to the rest of these guys, but I've done maybe like 6 or 7 competitions totally, and each one just gets easier than the last one in terms of my anxiety. I think just with the whole process. Like I couldn't imagine that in school. In school, I thought it was just too hardcore. Participating in competitions, it was like, you have to be one of those types of people, and I think that's totally untrue. So, yeah.
And what is the main thing, or what is the main experience you extracted from every competition? Like the common thing you've had and common thing you've extracted.
I think
gaining, yeah.
I think the ones that I've been most, I think the competitions that in fact I've liked the output of most, like even now if I look back, the ones I like the most are the ones that I didn't win. So I think, or like, didn't get as far as other people, let's put it that way. They always like in some way, translated into something nice. Like for example, the buying competition, that's how I got to know these 2 guys. And I didn't get an honorable mention or any of that. So, and that's still one of my favorites. I think what I learned and what I got out of it is it's not about winning, and it shouldn't be. It's about, putting a little bit of yourself into it and, creating something that's completely unique. And if you're happy with it, then in your mind, like, you should have won. Like, I feel like I won it, even though I didn't, which is, it's a nice feeling to hold on to. And all these years later, I think buying was maybe my favorite one that I did myself. The experience with these guys was something completely different. So for me, that was my favorite, and it was 4 years ago, maybe. So I still love looking at those drawings.
And definitely in your case it was a little bit different, yeah, because NonA gave an opportunity to use the research that was done as well before. And from what I said, I was reading a little bit about your project, about one of them was putting the plants into the ground, yeah, and then they can be reseeded, yeah, if I'm not wrong. And I wanted to kind of ask you about this, how you just wanted to push this idea a little bit further, not only on the boards at UCL in your case.
Yeah, exactly. So what I wanted to say is what I really liked about you guys and an architecture is that you also put in the same entry of pools both students and also practitioners. So that was really motivating for me as a student because I didn't have a lot of experience. I mean, I did have an internship, but the moment I saw that everyone is free to join, I actually felt more motivated, that a student can also win a competition against a practitioner. It's more about, the design idea in the end. And also when I logged through your journals and you could see how different people responded to the same brief and how, students and practitioners in the end had a sometimes very similar, but also sometimes very different approach. And then the project that you're talking about is actually now my graduating project, but the one I used for the Non-Architecture Award, it was my last year's project, which was about climate change and sea level rise in central London. So I started this research over the first year when I joined the Waterless World competition, and it was just 2 drawings that we were allowed to submit, and I thought, okay, which are the 2 drawings that represent my project best? And it was actually a super difficult thing to kind of think about. And the competition in general helps you to become very concise. How do you explain your project, in this 100-word summary or with just one sentence, and how do you pick really 2 drawings that speak of your whole design? So it really helped me with that also in university, because you go back, especially at the Bartlett, and you have these portfolio presentations, and then you have to be able to be concise about your project and be, talk to the point. So then I started this research. I got the honorable mention, and I felt motivated to follow this through. And then next year in the Non-Architecture Award, I submitted my finished design, or it was still actually evolving, but it was more or less finished. And then it was also more open. You could join more categories, which was for me perfect, because I had my architectural background and I would study landscape. So I really liked this multidisciplinary ground that you provided. So I joined different categories: the spatial, the landscape, the urban, and so it was really great to see that it's not just a project for landscape or a project for urban. It can kind of float around in that sense.
Thank you, guys. Any comment to that?
Well, sure. Again, you're gonna want to start.
Sorry.
It's okay, the sound?
Yes.
Okay. So, well, that's saying for us, why we are still competing in competition, or what's exactly the question?
What's your approach? Yeah, why you participate in the competitions?
Yeah, it's a kind of escape group from everyday life in terms of work. Aitor and I, for example, has a lot of thoughts, a lot of ideas come from our researches. So once we find a competition that would fit our ideas, just jump from them and try how to explain, how to draw in our style, because we don't like say that we have a specific style in terms of representation, because one of our goals is try to do different things in each competition in terms of representation, ideas, whatever. That's it's a way. First of all, we have a good time doing competition, because we don't have any rules or like the real world, we say.
Standards.
So that's the thing. I don't know. It's like a laboratory with experiments. So that's the thing. But what do you think, Aitor?
I also would say that, as Joaquin said before, we used to use this platform Discord in order to play video games, because for us, for our studio, FAB, from the beginning, it was very important to have fun with everything that we do. That, and of course, competition, especially non-architectural, is exciting. Yes, as Joaquin said, of the standards and the rules that applies to the regular work, but it is quite interesting that even with that, even being quite utopian, it explores ideas that from the contemporary architecture and contemporary contexts are quite interesting and allow you to reflect about ideas that actually can be useful, can be applied to research, can be so that's for me is the most important part, the combination of having fun, exploring very pure ideas, and the laboratory, as Joaquin said, to explore ideas in a very savage, radical way.
Yeah, exactly. I actually want to add something to that. It's great actually to always log in and see, you know, the topics they choose for these competitions, because they're always immediate and current relevant topics. So we as architects, we have this responsibility, but it's also at the same time, or designers, not architects, we have this responsibility, but the opportunity to take a stand about something, become more like activists, not just designers. So we provoke with a design, and we can influence socio-political, you know, situations that happen around the world. So it's really great to use the creativity for that, and not only for void design and just void drawings, you know. So you always kind of view them as provocations to that, you know, make a small change, even if it's just in a small community. It doesn't matter. It still matters in a way. Yeah.
But is this a goal kind of that comes from education or from practice, or maybe your, you know, I don't know, growth, like childhood growth? Or what is it that actually motivates, you know, to fight in these competitions? As you've just said, to be, for example, socialists or activists. I'm sorry.
I think it's actually both. For me, because I don't have so much experience in practice, it comes really more of being a student and having, you know, a brief to design about something, and then starting to think, okay, how can my design have actually an impact on something, even if it's just in university, in my studies. So it's not going to be built, right? But then by participating in a competition outside your university, you really have the opportunity to show your work, show your ideas. And, you know, if you're also smart, you log in and you see, who is the jury? Am I interested to work for them in the future? So you can really be precise with your design and influence these people, make you remember your design and remember your ideas about something. And then, I mean, we live in the world of social media, so things are shared and reshared. So, yeah.
What do you think the impact of participation in these competitions will be on your future career after you'll come back and continue with the architecture?
So my personal goal is to keep taking part in competitions now that I have more time, and I'm actually working on another one right now, and it really helps. I mean, you guys know better, but I think it really helps also when you're in the practice. So you kind of train yourself to be in this sort of timeline of working for a competition, producing drawings, producing presentation, and keeping your thoughts together. So I see it as a training as well to become better and have less stress by the time, you know, you've taken part into, like Ash said, in 7 competitions, and you feel more confident about the process in the end. Whereas in my first time I was submitting my drawings, I was super stressed. Okay, is it good enough, or am I good enough? I'm gonna be, you know, it's ridiculous or it's not. But it's not really about that, because everyone's design has something unique, and you can get creative by seeing other people's works. Doesn't matter if they win or not. It's just.
So after that, did you came up to a sort of a strategy, how it works, or to put what everything has in common, and then to use that in order to get better, or in order to, I don't know, to organize yourself better?
Yeah, actually, it really helped, and it helped me with university as well. And it's really about, I mean, for me personally, it's really about telling a story, and telling a story through drawings. So in every competition that I took part, it was really about, okay, what is my narrative? I need to explain this narrative with 10 images. And in this project, in the Fluid Strata, for instance, the order of the images that I submitted, they were making sense for me, because I was shifting scales from an urban scale to, I was zooming into something else. I was showing the impact of sea level rise in central London, but then, you know, it mattered in which order these drawings were placed to explain the narrative. And also for me personally, it was very important to find one image, which I call the hero image, which is, the drawing that fully explains my project. It is provocative. It should inspire something. It should have a bit of a wow factor, but at the same time, it should have this technical aspect to explain the project. And then you kind of position these drawings in a way that you have a drawing first that has this wow factor, but then you show this jury and they say wow, but then the next drawing has the aha factor, so it makes sense. You show them how it can really be applied. So the duet of these two, something very speculative but then something very tangible, really helps, because you show the speculation of the design, how it can be applied, in a more crazy situation outside of the displays of the architectural world, but also very precise in a way of the technical aspect. So this was something that I followed through actually in both of these competitions, and also in university then. I was making an array of drawings that, were playing between speculation and something being very tangible, or zooming in scale and showing really the materiality of something that everyone could really understand, but then also taking this, putting it in a simulation, scanning the physical object, and then, making it very outworldly.
These are the lessons from the winners, guys. So not noted down, yeah. I think to the audience, and I think with this impact that you've just presented, these lessons that you gave us, this leads to a question that Zuntor Nitro asked about where do you see yourself in 5 years, Ashti, for example.
Oh God, that's a tough one.
Look into the future.
I feel like every time I'm in therapy, my therapist is always like, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" And that's the most frightening.
It's usually a question you've been asked during the interviews. It's a tough one. So yeah,
I think it's a tough one for me because I have these two sides of my life, right? I have this job which I love, and it's truly like a job, I'm not going to say 9 to 5, but I do architectural work every single day, and I genuinely love it, and I love my colleagues. So I feel like that professional side of me has been fulfilled. And I have the fun side, which is my illustration practice, which I do on the side. So it's tough because I think when people ask that question, you want to say things like, I want to be this, or I want to quit my job, or I want to do this. And I've kind of very luckily before my 30s already reached that point where I've done, some crazy projects and things that I couldn't believe, like mural painting and stuff like that. So I don't know. That's a tough question for me because it could be literally anywhere, and I'm fine with it. So maybe in Spain. I'll say that.
That's totally
next collaboration, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I'll meet these guys. Actually, we haven't met in person ever, so maybe in 5 years.
Well, that would be great.
And you guys? Thank you, Ashti.
Well, since we are right now finishing our first batch of building projects built in real life, we are actually very excited with that question.
With regulation, budgets, and so on.
Clients.
Not utopia anymore, yes?
Exactly. But we are very happy looking where the studio is heading. Also, we are very interested in teaching. That's why we are also in research. But who knows? I also wanted to comment on something that Irina asked before about regarding the impact that competition can have in our overall work. I think it's interesting because in any case, some of the ideas that we explore for competition, some of them non-architectural competition, has at the end has become the topic of our PhDs and some ideas that we are finally exploring in real architecture in form of houses or And that's a really exciting process, because we remember when we were exploring some ideas or some field of research, being like being kind of naive, and then we started to dive into it through thanks to the competition, thanks to the intensity that it requires. Years later, we are like so deep in it.
I think also to add on to that, I think it's interesting that everyone here has different professional backgrounds, and so it's sort of the back and forth between competitions and what you're doing outside of competitions is so different. For me, I think it just helps you with storytelling. It's exactly what's been mentioned before. What comes after what is almost as important as the content that you're showing, and I think the only way you learn that is I think it's the only way I could learn was through these competitions and kind of curating a story, which was all about storytelling. Even in a professional desk job, you have to tell a story to sell it to your client. There's nothing that teaches you that quite as well as competition. So the success that these guys are having, bringing that very directly into their practice, I assume somewhat comes from their ability to weave that story in. Yeah.
You've mentioned that even the participation in the competition influenced what your PhD was. So, did that make a major difference into your career?
Excuse me, could you repeat, Irina? Sorry.
Sorry about that.
Because of the
So
sound.
you mentioned that at some point, even you've changed. The participation in the competition influenced the choice for your PhD. Did that make a major turn into your career?
What is
Forgive you.
Well, most for first of all, we are not a good example in terms of follow a path to do a competition, because we have to say that some of them, not a lot of them, but some of them, even we have the project have never been sent to the jury, because we know that even because they was quite radical. So that's why we try to look for put in practice some ideas. So that's the thing. We don't mind if the competition fit very well or not. It's just try things and check if they run at the long time. This idea.
Sorry.
No, this idea comes from it's easy, just a conversation or interest in reading or movie or playing video games, and then check or look for information about that. So in that process, we always start like what if this thing could be, or instead of. So just we try to explore just the opposite of things or something like that. So is relevant from the real practice? Sometimes yes, but sometimes it's just like a game or like a theoretical work. Maybe in the future, we don't know.
And actually, answering your question regarding being a turning point in our work, actually when you discover some topic that it can be an interesting field of research for you, that can be exciting enough to spend 4 years or 5 years diving really deep into it. It's an exciting discovery. That's why when you explore so many things, like Joaquin said, in a laboratory, having fun and not expecting too much, but suddenly you discover a topic that is interesting enough for you to spend that kind of effort and that kind of time. Is of course is a turning point. Yes, I'm sure of it.
And thank you. But based on this, there is also a question, because you had about the difference between a small difference between the competitions and practice, but also a competition as a place to have fun, yeah, to as a safe zone maybe to explore and this. And there is a question, kind of, do you see yourself participating in the competitions in the 5 years? That's the question. Are you going still explore and treat, let's say, maybe non-architecture competition as a way to discover new things?
Yeah, of course. Why not? Why not?
When we stop participating in competition is when we stop the passion about thinking out the box and thinking new ways of inhabiting, asking new questions. That's why competitions are going to always be relevant for us.
I think it's essential to maintain a certain creative capacity or something, but not only participate, but also study or check other participants, other projects, maybe other winners, maybe other ideas, makes us alive or make us into the thing, into the wave. So I think it's important always have at least 2 or 3 competitions a year, just to, when you do exercise, to maintain fit the brain, I think.
I agree.
Thank you. And you, Daphne? What do you think? Thank you, guys.
I think it's also super important to be able to, when you've done a competition about a specific theme, to be able to let go, try something different. So sometimes, when we make a good design, or we tend to have a success with a specific design we're doing, we keep holding onto that. So it's also really important to try completely different themes in competitions that arise, and see how your ideas can evolve. What have you learned from another competition that you can bring into the next one? And for me personally, going into practice now, I think I will use the competitions precisely for that, to develop my own research on the side and test it through competitions, to a point that maybe, in the future, in the 5 years time, as you're saying, I would be able to take the what if, because I also use the what if in all of the narratives and the project that I'm doing, and actually build with it, and even in a small scale, to really be able to test and have a physical design implemented from something that looked very speculative, and people would think that this could never be built, but then sort of transcend into that idea.
Thank you. And Ashti?
So next 5 years, I mean, I'm sure I'm going to take part in a few, but I think I'm on a little bit of a competition break at the moment. I think juggling 2 jobs is hard enough, but I think the second I somewhat give up one of them, that's the first thing I'm going to get back to. I think it's interesting, though, how the competition mentality has helped me in my general practice, but it also keeps coming up. I proposed for a project in the UK, and I eventually got it, and my eventual client ended up, like, the thing that he said to me is like, wow, you really approach this like an architectural competition. And this is not an architect, but I think it brings you a certain rigor to any creative work that you do that nothing else will. So yeah, as I said, on a little bit of a break, but looking forward to getting back to it, because I mean, it's given me so much, just the process of participating and approaching a brief and as Daphne mentioned, like distilling a brief into one drawing. That's it's a skill on its own. So
Thank you. And just another question from the audience is basically, do you think being a team improves the process versus doing it on your own? And how important is the aspect of team in participating in the competitions? Sorry, Daphne, maybe here you didn't participate in the team, or maybe in the university. So, guys, if you... Sorry, Daphne.
Well, maybe she has an opinion, but even without being participating.
Exactly. Why you don't participate?
For us,
Do you think you would be able to achieve the same performance?
yeah, exactly. For us, it's very simple. As I said, for us, the fun element is key in everything we do, even in our real practice architecture. And we had the intuition that collaborating with ASTI was going to be super fun. It actually was. So we had the correct. We also thought that we were going to learn much about ASTI. That was also a beautiful opportunity in order to create a team that is going to be fun, is going to be exciting, and also you are going to learn from your teammates. So it was a perfect plan.
I don't think all teams always work out. Oh, sorry, Daphne, go ahead.
Go for it.
Oh, I was just going to say, I don't think all teams are necessarily, you can't expect all teams to work out great. I've worked on competitions with other teams and the same team again and again, and every time the result is always the same. And that's not to say that the output wasn't successful, it's that the process just wasn't fun. And I think that's what, at the end of the day, when competitions aren't fun, it kind of shows in the work. And then, so I was apprehensive to work with these guys. First of all, we'd never met before, no clue how we would get along, and it's two of them versus me, so they win all the arguments. But it was just one of the most enriching and fantastic experiences of my life, like in terms of creatively. I think the work we created is something that's truly a product of all three of us. And I think for me, what was particularly meaningful in the team is that there were certain competitions, at least for me, where I felt like I wasn't giving enough, and these guys, in any other team, that would be a problem. But these guys really, kind of helped me, supported me. In some cases, just literally told me, this is how you draw it, because it's not easy. You can't just keep pumping out drawings that are amazing and brilliant and kind of hit the brief every time. And I think when that doesn't happen, a team is very useful. Like, they kind of help you pick yourself back up. And these guys have done it for me many times. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think you have to have the right team. I've been working a lot on teamwork back in my bachelor's degree in Munich. It was only teamwork, actually, all the projects, which was great in a way, but I wasn't able to grow into my own identity so fast. So I actually thought, okay, now at the Bartlett, I have the chance, because everything is individual, to really develop my own story and what my own identity and what really interests me. So both are beneficial, but at some point, you really need to, develop your own passions. And then going back into teamwork, you have your voice. And then you can, if you have the right team, you can complement each other. So in the future, funnily enough, the competition I'm taking part now, it's with a team. So even though in the non-architecture competitions before it was individual, now I'm going back into teamwork again. So I've had my sort of 2-year course working alone, and it was really fun. But there are these moments where you really need another person's opinion of what Asha said. I mean, how, if you're stuck into something, another person sees it completely differently and their skills work. But it's often very easy to, if you have the wrong team, to not complement each other. And in the end, I mean, the design becomes dull, or it doesn't have this sort of passion that your interests maybe are in.
So I think that it's great to have these two experience here, to work individually and to work in a team, and now we can actually say what is good for yourself, maybe, I think. And guys, so if we could sum up a little bit, summarize what we said and what we thought about this. So why are the competitions important? Like in few words, in your opinion, why you do it?
From my point of view, from experience, is in order to experiment new ideas, new ways of to explore some questions, that can maybe later you will explore with more deepness, but to launch the first questions and to explore them.
Yeah, I will say that this is the easier and direct way to enjoy and to have fun doing architecture. That's the thing.
Which sometimes might be difficult in architecture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you show your work, you show your ideas, you can experiment with no limits from, your university or your client, or it doesn't matter what. It's your design and your own approach into something, because you don't have a client meeting every Thursday where you have to see what's going on, or you don't have your tutorial every Friday. So that and training really yourself to become better in doing a very concise being very concise about your work, what it is really about. And this 100-word summary, as dull as it sounds, is really important to explain your work in a sentence. Especially for me, it was really hard to do that, and it's still hard for me. But every time you do it, you become better at it, and then more people get your work faster than you think. So yeah, it's a matter of training, showing your work, and experimenting for me.
And just a question up to this question. What is the most important thing you've learned for other participants?
Ashley, if you could combine maybe these two answers, would it be possible?
Sure. So it actually, my answer is a combination. I think why competitions and what is most important is both like making yourself comfortable, kind of being in an uncomfortable situation. And for me, I associate not having control, constraints, just parameters to everything like that. For me, gives me anxiety. And I think kind of participating in competitions and making sense of that discomfort, that for me personally has been very important, but I think it also pushes you forward creatively a lot. I think what one competition brought to me was probably, which, took a month and a half, maybe two, was the same as what 1 year of architecture school maybe brought me. So it's sort of fast learning really, and kind of figuring out what you're best at and what you're worst at, and it's okay to be bad at things. That's fine. So yeah.
Thank you. And I think that's a good summary. And so thank you so much, guys. I don't know if you got maybe any comments to add or questions to ask. No, thank you so much, guys. It was really a great pleasure to have you, and I hope it's gonna motivate other participants to join and actually to participate in the competitions. So you showed things that we from the non-architecture provides us, and it also creates as we can see now, slowly it creates a community, a better community in this case, and we hope that Discord channel and this discussion that are gonna come up will give us a little bit more. So just to announce a little bit, we are planning the next event in the next few weeks. Now on the motivation competition, the next one might be a little bit about the later stages after the competition and what's happening. So the lessons, as some of you said already, we hope to get even better. So thank you so much, and it was really, really a great pleasure to get to know you. Get you.
Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
accepting our invitations and our challenge. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for the
Thank you.
invitation. It was great.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Let's keep in touch and let's join the community of Discord in non-architecture and help us to win the next competition.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Soon.